This has thrown a monkey wrench into the election. I mean, everybody was aware that the Supreme Court was very important, which is why President Trump recently refreshed and updated his now not quite so short list of potential Supreme Court justices, and he was, goading Vice President Biden to try to, come out with some names of his own. And now the urgency of that will become even greater since there's not a future vacancy. There is now a current vacancy. Mitch McConnell has acted quickly. He acted very quickly right after Justice Scalia died to say we were going to wait until after the election to consider a Supreme Court nominee because it was President Obama's last term and it was a Republican-controlled Senate. The calculus is different now, but of course the Republicans have only the slimmest of majorities, and he's going to have to get at least 50 Republicans on board for having a vote and supporting whoever it is the president nominates.
We're being joined right now by John Malcolm, Vice President of the Institute for Constitutional Government and Director of the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies and Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. I want to stay there because Senator Mitt Romney's office has put out a statement. He will not vote to confirm a Supreme Court nominee until after Inauguration Day. Again, that's just according to blue check mark reporters reporting it. It's, again, that's not terribly shocking. Merrick Garland's name was put forth, and we obviously know that he never saw a vote. Right. How does the strategy work for the White House here? You put a name forward in which it's going to be an uphill battle to get Republicans on board to confirm that person. How does the White House play this?
Well, I think the president is going to nominate whoever the president wants. He has strong views on these subjects, as did the people in the White House counsel's office. And there are going to be a lot of people conservatives who have been, at times disappointed with the president, but quite pleased with his performance with respect to appointing conservative judges and justices. And they will be very anxious to see who the president nominates, and they will either then be galvanized and motivated to turn out in droves and vote for him, or perhaps it will do the same by galvanizing the Democrats to turn out and vote against him. So Mitt Romney is out already and saying something. Frankly, if the president wins in November and the Republicans are going to keep the Senate, there would be no reason to wait until Inauguration Day to have a vote. That would just delay things. But of course, if there is not a vote taken before the election, and if Vice President Biden wins, then that calculus changes dramatically.
So, this puts the election, I think, if it was already a 10 in the mind of the base, I don't really know, and I can't even really speculate what this does in the mind of the independent voter. But it was just in July, Vice President Mike Pence told Breitbart News exclusively, John, that there may be no issue more important to the life of the nation than the destiny of the SCOTUS. Do you have any thoughts on how this might actually change the election? I mean, I know it's fresh and it's a Friday evening, and most voters, and particularly, I guess, just those swing and independent voters, they may not even be aware of this news.
Well, they certainly will be aware of it very soon, and it's one thing to sort of talk about a future vacancy at some point during the next presidency. It is quite a different thing to be faced with a vacancy. And I'm quite sure that President Trump is going to be laying his cards on the table in terms of saying, here's my nominee, and there will be a lot of pressure on Vice President Biden to tell the American people, well, if you elect me, this is who will be my nominee. And that is going to focus the attention of the country like a laser on this issue in the same way that the country focused on it in 2016. There were an awful lot of people who voted who said, the Supreme Court was one of the major reasons why I voted, and those actually broke more or less 2-1 in favor of President Trump. In fact, there were a lot of conservatives that didn't like and didn't particularly trust President Trump, but they cared a lot about the judiciary. And when they saw his list, they said, well, we may not quite trust the guy, but this is a good list and we trust him on this very important issue. And some of them held their noses and voted for him precisely for that reason. And I'm sure that he is hoping that the same thing will happen this time around.
I remember that sentiment, it being very palpable, because the question was, this was at I guess the dawn of the Never Trump contingent, and that was certainly the question in the campaign. I think smartly and rightfully made the Supreme Court sort of a tentpole issue. The remaining members of the Supreme Court, Stephen Breyer is 82 years old, John. And he is followed by Clarence Thomas. There had been rumblings about, him maybe departing the bench, as well as a 70-year-old Samuel Alito. These men were obviously, Breyer, Thomas, and Alito, very close with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You have to think that, this has an effect on their thinking. If we assumed that the reports were correct, and Justice Thomas, Breyer, and Alito were seriously considering leaving the court and maybe just living out the rest of their lives, particularly an 82-year-old Stephen Breyer off of the bench, you have to think it's that her passing, even if it again for them is not really surprising. She's been ill for a long time. It has to sway them one way or another.
Well, I never quite bought into these rumors that either Justice Thomas or Justice Alito were going to retire. They've certainly earned the right to if they want to,
Right.
But I don't. I sense they are vigorous and enjoying the job. And in fact, now that they have a very slim majority of justices on the court, and I suppose the prospect of possibly increasing that majority, their enthusiasm for the job may even grow. As for Justice Breyer, look, I certainly wish him well and a long life. I would think that if Vice President Biden were to win the election, that at some point during the first term for Joe Biden, it would be likely that Justice Breyer would retire. If President Trump wins a second term, particularly if he gets to replace, nominate someone to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I would be very surprised if he were to decide to retire, which would give President Trump another opportunity to name another conservative Supreme Court justice.